Okay, let's talk about some of the common attacks. The first one is a phishing attack. This is an email attack that looks like it comes from somebody you like or trust. You want to be careful, and even on Technology Partner a few years back had that happen. We had somebody right before we put in multi-factor authentication, which is going to come up here in a little bit, get into one of our emails and send out to all of our clients an email on behalf of us. Now, we closed it down in about 10 minutes, but it did go out to 130 different contacts in 10 minutes. So there's a lot that can happen. So if you don't know why somebody's sending you an email, I suggest don't open it. And one of the big things, this is more of a company type thing, you'll have in a company where somebody will send an email and it'll say, oh, we need you to make this deposit to this bank account. If you aren't expecting somebody to ask for a deposit or a payment from you, make sure you call. It's worth a phone call. And I've seen $150,000 transactions happen this way. And the people didn't realize it. They're just used to paying. They got the email, they sent off the payment, and then $150,000 is gone. And it can be very hard to get it back because what the hackers do is once somebody's in the bank, they close that account. The next one, and we hear a lot about this, is ransomware. So ransomware is where they don't actually take anything from you, but they do what's called encrypting it. And encryption is a situation where you make it unreadable. So I have to tell everybody, you may remember when you were young, you used to do a very simple encryption where you would have letters of the alphabet with a number underneath it, so the word would be made out of the number. That is a basic example of encryption. But with a computer, that gets very, very complex, but it's the same thing. A letter gets changed into a different character that is hard or impossible to read. And so ransomware, they put an encryption on your computer so that you can't read your files. You can't read your pictures, you can't read your documents. And then they usually will then say, if you give us $500, $1,000, $100,000. You may have seen some of the cities in Florida paid $500,000 to get their files unencrypted. Because if it's that important, you can't get it back. And what I try to tell people is make sure you're using a backup, a cloud backup. If an encryption happens, you can just restore your files from the cloud backup solution, but make sure they are ransomware protected cloud backups, because we were using one of the cloud solutions, I won't say which one, but what happened was it got encrypted on one computer because of ransomware. It encrypted in the cloud because the cloud just copied the things up, and then it copied it down to 5 more computers. So it encrypted all the computers across the thing. So when you do look for backups, make sure that they speak specifically about ransomware protection so that you don't have a situation where all you're doing is letting it encrypt all over the place. This is another big one that's happening. Support scams. This is when you'll get, some of us may have seen it, it'll either pop up on your screen, it'll scream very loudly with this siren. It says, Microsoft has detected an attack. You must call this number and we will get it fixed. And I actually had a client that had that pop up on their screen, and they did click on the link and they did call the number. And then about 2 minutes later, they realized that was a bad decision to do. They called me, so we logged in. I saw that other person trying to hack at their cookies and their things. We locked them out, but I played a little bit with them. I talked to them and was like, why do you need to go that into that file and that file? And then I kicked them out. But that's what they're looking for. And I was just talking, there is a new way that they're able to use. You probably see when you go to websites, it says, please allow us to use cookies. And cookies make a website experience easier and better. But the problem is they're also holding all of your login information in those cookies. So what's happening right now is they're using a phishing attack to get you to click on a link. When you click on that link, it opens up a remote desktop session to the hacker. And then they come in and then they start to try to go into your browser to grab those cookies you're currently using. And then they can use the same cookie to log on to your bank account information or anything else that you're bypassing. So again, it's recommended every so often to clean out your cookies. I know it's inconvenient to have to do that 2-factor authentication for your bank login, but the more you do that, the more secure you are. So you have to balance your convenience for your security. And always, if that pops up, even if you have to turn your computer off, don't click on the links on those scams. Whoops. Okay, so I was asked, how do I clear cookies? In your browser, you'll usually see off to the, depending on which browser, off to the left, there'll be settings. Of course, now my computer is going to be mean. But there is usually a delete history and delete browser. And then you can clear out your browsers through your delete history button. And it depends. Chrome is a little different than Google, but you can clear them out by going over to the 3 dots on the upper right, going down to history, and then clearing it. Okay. And then the next one is email hijacking. So even on Technology Partners a few years back had this happen. This is where a hacker will get your password, will log in as you, and then send a bunch of hacking emails out of your account. We had that happen. We identified it within 10 minutes of it happening and shut it down, but they still got out and sent over 100 emails in that time. Now, our protocol was, we told every customer that we had been hacked, what happened. We made sure that they knew and they were secure. We changed all passwords throughout the company, and then reset the whole system. So if you do get email hijacked, the other thing that can happen is social media hijacking. So if you're very active on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you can get hijacked. And what they'll do is they'll go in, they'll change your password, they'll change the email for you to reset your password, and then you can't get in. So when you do that, you do have to call Facebook or LinkedIn and go through the process of getting it reset. But this is an example where it really helps to use two-factor authentication, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute.